catch this beat. I wanna see a battle. 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 Catch this beat. Catch this beat. I wanna see a battle. 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 Stand to the side. Stand to the side. Stand to the side. Stand to the side. I wanna see a battle. I wanna see a battle. I wanna see a battle. Sends across the board. Then stop. Showing to the hop. Catch the beat to the Cuban beat. All the girls don't see you. Look at that flow. They just don't see they flow. Catch this beat. 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 The girls go further than die. Stop showing to the hop. Catch the beat to the Cuban beat. All the girls don't see you. Look at that flow. They just don't see they go. Stop. Smile, laugh, it's over. Catch this beat. Catch this beat. Showing to the hop. Catch the beat to the Cuban beat. All the girls don't see you. Look at that flow. They just don't see they go. Stop. Smile. Laugh. It's over.
Check. While Darrell's catching his breath, my name is Zach Whittenburg. Thank you all so much for being out with us this evening for the original Lovely. Thank you to Elizabeth Liebman. I'll echo her thanks and appreciation to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago for this incredible space that's just ideal for the kind of work that we're going to be talking about tonight. Working with the Humanities Festival, this is the third year I've had the pleasure of hosting a sort of a dance-themed presentation here, and it's always an absolutely frictionless, wonderful experience. Thanks to Julia Mayer and Tim Harkins and Courtney Ton and everyone. It's just an all-star team. So what we're here to do is talk about Darrell Jones's work. This is the man right here to my left. And before we go too far, I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to introduce all the artists here. So if Darrell wants to kind of go through who we are.
And I call them collaborators as well. They're not just performers. They help me to create the work and make the work and realize the work. So I'm getting my voice back, kind of, right? I'm not too out of shape. Damon Green. Gary Moore. And this is Jason Howard. Yeah.
And on the decks, we've got Justin Mitchell.
Yes, sir. Justin Mitchell.
So why don't we get started? So what you just saw, this first performance excerpt that we showed you, has sort of a loose title of Catch This Beat. And I wanted to start tonight by asking Darrell to kind of unpack a little bit about an experience he had at a club in Atlanta, Georgia called Loretta's, and what happened there, and how does that sort of bridge into where we are today and what we just saw.
Absolutely. I'm gonna actually tell two stories. I think the first one will give a preface for the second story. And I feel like I'm getting old now, because you know how when you get older, you start to tell the stories over and over again, and sometimes your imagination starts to add events and details into them. So this is a story that has, I think, a lot of imaginative leeway inside of it. I was around 11 years old, and I was walking up the stairs, and my dad was behind me. And I think at that point I was just trying on physicalities that I thought were strong. I think I'd seen my mother kind of walk like this when she was feeling sassy. Or my grandmother have this kind of tone in her body when she was trying to make me do something. And so as I was going up the stairs, I think I might have done my hips like this or my hand like that. And my dad said, why are you moving like that? And I remember, I've heard my dad angry before, but I never heard him scared. And there was just something about that fear where that next step, I righted my body in a way where I knew it wouldn't scare him. Loretta's story. This is about 15 years later with my fake ID.
So you were how old?
Actually not 15, probably about 10 years. I'm at a club in Atlanta. I'm at a gay club. I'm in a black gay club in Atlanta, Georgia called Loretta's. They like to have ladies' first names for gay clubs sometimes so that they're a little bit subversive. I'm dancing with my friends. We did this thing called Carrying On, which I think was sort of I think they each had what I call a stair story, a moment maybe with their father or their uncle when they had been told not to move that way. And so we had this way of communicating where we would be talking with each other and be like, girl, it was about to. And then we would write ourselves back up to the thing we knew wouldn't get our asses kicked. Right? I see this guy in the corner, and he is just carrying on and carrying on and carrying on. And I actually thought something was wrong with him. I thought he was on PCP or something. And as I got closer, I noticed people were starting to gather around. It scared me. You know what I mean? His freedom in his body scared me. And as I got closer, I heard this voice sort of in the back, you better vogue, bitch. And I was like, oh, this has a name. This thing he's doing has a name to it. And I feel like I started to want to investigate that name, that thing that they had said, not necessarily because of what he was doing, but because of the freedom in his body. That's the thing that was alluring to me. And I think that's the thing that keeps being alluring to me is how to find freedom in my body.
It's interesting too because the essence of the sort of sensation of the movement as a viewer and as a mover is the sense of freedom, and yet there are sort of discrete specific elements of the vocabulary of vogue. And I was wondering if you could kind of walk us through what some of those are, and then also kind of maybe point to some examples of them in what we just saw.
Right. What Andre was doing, his name was Andre Mizrahi, the guy in the corner. He wasn't doing it alone. He was part of an ecosystem. And part of this ecosystem were a group of people around that were like, yes, 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 that were sort of egging him on. Part of the ecosystem was a wonderful DJ that was pumping the music, right? And so what I think we've tried to do is to create sort of ecosystems and structures in order to create a similarity to that environment. Right? So this is a very different environment than we might find at Loretta's. And so one of the things we've been practicing is how to escalate. And so by escalating, I think sometimes we start at 1. And so our 1 is just sort of this walk that you might have seen. Our 2 might have been this sort of turn on the walk. A 3 might have been the arm starting to get involved with that. So there's a patterning that happens. I feel that like with repetition in West African dance, the energy starts to come into the body. Right? So those are some of the structures we're doing. Some of the little movement phrases I call like a little lick. That's a little lick of movement that we all learned. I felt I was trying to structure it, that if it went longer than that, it started to get into choreography, and the energy died. So there's something about these small little licks of structure, I feel, that keeps the energy up, that keeps the energy going.
What are some things like what is a duck walk, or what is a crash, or what are these spins?
Yeah, there's within the ballroom environment, it is a competitional type of environment, and there's certain elements. Some of you guys might have seen some of the videos that were going on as you were coming in. Some of the vocabulary, some of the elements they use are things like the duck walk, which is sort of a low kind of thing. This remind anybody of anything, like Cossack dancing. It takes a lot of strength in the legs to do that. This takes a lot of strength in the legs to do that. I think what is admired is the strength in the legs, but the elegance in the arms. Right? What's valued is your ability to go between, I'm just going to say the words, I've been avoiding saying these things, masculine and feminine, Oshun, and we could call it many other things, but I feel like part of the ritual in battling some of our stare stories is to be able to embrace both those parts of our bodies and those energies, and sometimes to do the extreme of the thing that I did on the stairs, in order to get back that freedom in my body.
When we were talking about the Catch This Beat section that we just watched, you mentioned that there's an accumulation structure that's a big part of it, and it kind of touched on it already in talking about sort of the loss of momentum when something sort of becomes choreographed and set and staged. So can you talk a little bit about what is the accumulative form of a dance like that do for that form? What does it sort of initiate in the body or make possible to dance?
What does it feel like, guys? I know that we keep toggling between, as we do it, we keep wanting to mess with the structure, to play inside of it. It feels like, even though we have a structure, that it's really important to be alive inside of it. And so there's something about continuing to play with each other, to play with you guys. Sometimes I'm seeing you as we are moving in space and time. So I think the play is important. The structure feels like a vessel in order to find that energy of the play. I don't know if that answered your question, or if I just...
It does. And I want to talk about vessel and in the context of space, right? And, you talk about pumping the space as what was happening as you all were entering for the event tonight. So I want to hear a little bit about that. What does that mean? And also, how does that connect with the arrangement of the furniture in this room tonight? Why are we staged like this? And what connection does this staging have to Vogue aesthetics and Vogue culture?
Gotcha. I feel like the staging is trying to emulate a runway, something you might see in a fashion show. It's a familiar form, I think, from going to balls that I've seen. So I'm just stealing, basically, in order to use it. I've been interested in how people come inside of a room. I think we're, I don't want to use the word trained, but in more proscenium types of forms, I think what's expected of us is sort of a quietude and coming in and...
Like if I'm up here. It's different, right?
Yeah, it's different. But I feel like there's something about coming into to see theater and that there's a certain respect that is about being quiet as an audience member and observing, and that's the respect. And the ballroom community, I think, has a different type of energy and feeling. When I first went in, they were high as hell. Do you know what I mean? And I think what it was is, and I'm not advocating, but what I'm saying is that there's a different energy in their body, there's a tone, there's a thickness of the air as you go into it. And I feel like part of the witnessing of this is trying to create a thickness in the air, whether it's through video of the environment, whether it's through us, what I call pumping the space, walking up and down, just to create sort of a flow of energy, whether it's through eating a power bar as you guys come in, so that's transparent what we're doing to prepare for the event. Yeah.
Well, I want to make sure that we're moving right along and trucking into our next performance excerpt. And if you want to talk just for a hair about what we're about to see next, and maybe one thing for the audience to look out for, kind of try to identify.
Got you. Fierce female fight.
Stop, look
剑
back.
放下，
Stop, look
剑
back.
放下，
Jason Solo.
上面有人！什么人？干什么的？抓起来！
小龙，通通出去，把门关上。好，说翻脸就翻脸。
Darrell Jason Damon Super. Damon Darrell. Jason Darrell. Cockfight alone. Cockfight together. Invoke. Arrest. fight. Battle. Cocked fight.
不准摸，那是李慕白的剑。
有本事来拿。
有本事就别用宝剑。
打不赢怪兵器不好。
Walk backwards.
去啊，随便挑，我等着你。去啊。
Trio fight. Banshee, Banshee.
把剑给我。
Cut.
拿去。
So I'm just curious, for those of you who kind of came a little bit ahead of when we officially started tonight, did any of you recognize any of the film excerpts that were playing on the screen? Color Purple? What else did you see? Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Good, 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 good. Probably not a surprise that there's some resonance between Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon and this nunchuck hair bit of material that we just watched. And I want to do another quick story time, if you don't mind. You were telling me once about something that happened on 125th Street in Manhattan, which goes right east-west through the center of Harlem.
Have any of you guys been to Harlem? Okay, yeah, like 125th Street. When you're like in the movie, when you're on 125th Street, I would liken it maybe to Michigan Avenue. You know what I mean? It's a lot of energy, a lot of people. I used to live on 125th Street, and as I came down one day, I was walking to go to the west side, and again, there's always tons and tons of people that you have to sort of go through and navigate, and as I looked across, it almost looked like Moses in the Red Sea. People were like separating. They were like visually moving out of the way, and I was like, what is going on over there? As I looked, I saw his brother, he was probably around 23 or something like that. And he looked like most of the brothers I would see on 125th Street. He had some like army fatigues on, big jacket, like a hat, baseball cap. As people were going and moving, I mean, literally out of the way. And as I got closer to him, I realized, oh, he was wearing these black Manolo Blahnik slingback mules. I was like, that's what it is, right? Because I had seen people on 125th Street that had gone all the way out, you know, total drag or very, very effeminate. And they would get heckled or not, you know, sometimes people were just used to them. But there was something about this combination, because he wasn't playing like, he was just walking like he normally would in these Manolo Blahnik slingback mules. So there was something about that was slightly scary, maybe intimidating. Maybe it's the fact that he looked so much like the rest of them that maybe they thought they had that potential. I don't know. But it struck me, and there's something I feel that I keep going towards. And it's not about, I think, about being scary. It's about, I think, the complexity that we all have in our bodies about how we present. And his bravery, I think, in a way, of going down the street like that. And then also this kind of attitude like, I'm not gonna go down without a fight. Like, he had a confidence in his body that was like, don't fuck with me. So that's something that's been ingrained in my head. And I feel like when I see, because I can never be somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, I know I'm not the most masculine person, but there's something about seeing women fighting, like strong women fighting, that's something that I've gravitated towards and something that I emulate in my body.
I was curious about, so, you know, a lot of what we talk about in Vogue culture, and, you know, a lot of what you've said to me over the years and getting to know, you know, your work and where it comes from, is that the community and the sense of place and sense of belonging that you can find in a place like Loretta's in Atlanta or something like that, sort of seems like it might be at odds with this portion of Vogue vocabulary that is very combative. And I was wondering if you could unpack a little bit this sort of seeming contradiction between like a movement style that kind of carries with it a lot of combative imagery and sort of adversarial qualities. How does that connect? How does that fit into something that's about a place of belonging and a community
and freedom?
spirit?
Yeah. What I mean, I'm old school. I've been around for a minute. I've seen the terrain change. I've seen it be more combative and about sort of being the best and being the one. And I feel like now that even though people go hard at each other, usually there's like a bam, 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 bam. There's like a hug afterwards. Because I feel what's starting to happen is, and probably what's happening already in bits and pieces, it's about the energy escalating. Again, it's not just about those two people battling. I think it's about the people on the sides that are like, yes, they're giving energy. It's about the DJ giving the beats, right? It's about the commentator. Like giving energy in that way, almost like a square dance, swing your partner, ho-si-ho, or
like a caller.
Like a caller, like a djembe drum that calls out that the dancer responds to. It's an ecosystem. And when it's at its best, I feel like it escalates closer to God. And when it's at its worst, it tears across like fire, you know? And those two things, that sacred and profane, live together. And I think that's the thing. That's the energy, that the sacred and profane are very close together.
Yeah. For any of you who might have been at this Elizabeth Liebman dance event last year at the Chicago Humanities Festival, I talked with a wonderful artist named Jennifer Monson, and a lot of what she had to say about her work and where it comes from is about sort of the body as a container of its own sort of individual anthropology of movement, as sort of archive or this repository that a body can accumulate over time through the practices of having different physical practices, movement practices, learning and studying different kinds of techniques, working toward expertise, multiple fluencies, that sort of thing. Walk us through a little bit of what are the sort of ingredients and the elements of the anthropology of the movement. Sometimes you talk about certain folks like Talvin Wilkes or Catherine Dunham or J.J. Gervais, and curious like what are sort of some of the roots of in your view, what are the roots of where this stuff comes from?
Yeah, I'm still, I think that's why it's been something that I keep going towards. It's still kind of a mystery. It feels like an excavation. Like I get to a certain surface and then there's more underneath that, and there's more underneath that. And each time I go a little deeper in the depth of it, it looks less like the thing that I had seen before. So sometimes it doesn't look like voguing to me anymore. It feels like there's something almost archetypal that trying to get to. And a lot of it is intuitive. I see something, or my collaborators see something, and it's like, oh, that reminds me of this. Oh, in The Color Purple, when Oprah comes down there, you told Harpo to beat me. There's something about her energy, there's something about her body, there's something about her personhood that's archetypal. And so we try to grab that and figure it out, or show it, or replicate it in our bodies.
And it comes from not only different sort of historical periods, but also from a pretty wide range of places around the globe, right? Like JJ's from Cote d'Ivoire, right?
Yeah. There's I danced with a choreographer named Ralph Lemon, and who has assembled black bodies from around the world in his company, and one of the company members is from Cote d'Ivoire, and we were just playing around. There was some music on, and I was doing my little thing, and he was like, oh, that reminds me of this dance. I can't remember the name of the dance, but he came out and started to do a very similar dance, and it just occurred to me, oh, where's the source for these things from? And again, I think that's part of the excavation. At first I thought, oh, they're from fashion magazines, right? People sort of emulating the poses and making movements out of them. And then it was like, oh, maybe it's from sort of this strong womanhood, this idea of that. And then seeing JJ do it, it was like, oh, maybe it even goes farther back to traditional dances, to dances that were done a long, long time ago that had a purpose. And that it was in his body, that it was in his male body, and he could bring it up so quickly. It was really interesting to me. He's straight. And so it was, it gave me pause to think that this thing that I had located as a black, gay event at Loretta's might actually have a history far beyond what I conceived of.
I think we might want to watch a little bit more movement. Tell us like one thing about what we're about to catch next.
The title of this is Lesbbo Porno.
Awesome. I don't know if some of you maybe had a coach or a mentor at some point who used the phrase, you have to learn the rules before you can break them, but breaking them becomes much more interesting once you've learned them first. At a great ballet instructor when I was a teenager who, really was the first person who kind of cracked open for me this idea of, going through all the work and doing all the drills and doing the repetition and putting in the effort and the time and the, doing it again and again and again until you can forget how to do it. And then you break open this sort of academic shape and it becomes something much more purposeful and sort of carries all this sort of meaning and weight to it. And I tell that as an introduction to talking about rules in the contexts of these sections of choreography and these sections of movement. And this great tension that I think maybe not all dance has, but I think a lot of dance that I personally respond to carries with it some sort of tension or friction between rule and rebellion, right? So in this Lesbbo porno section that we just saw, which is which? So what are the rules of that section? And then how are you pressing in the performance of that section from the inside against this sort of container that you've created?
Let me just give a little bit of context for the name, because it's a little provocative. The rule is no touching. No touching for that first section. Getting as close as possible, but not touching. And I remember one of my friends who's lesbian saying, I'm just going there. We were talking about pornography. And she was saying, oh, I don't like the female on female, that stuff. And I was like, why don't you like that? She's like, well, it just looks so fake. Like they seem like it's all about the way that it looks for the camera. They're not really inside of each other. They're not really penetrating each other's energy. It's all about the appearance of it. And there was something about, and it doesn't feel like this, but there was something about the parameters of trying to get as close as possible, but not touching, that somewhat felt like what she was talking about, I think. Like there's this energy that you're not quite able to penetrate, but that is charged. Yeah.
And it sort of is it locates the difference between performing something and doing that thing, right?
Yeah. It's interesting too. I was just thinking about, it's in doing that. I have clear images now of Damon's mouth, which is not something that you usually think about when I'm dancing. Do you know what I mean? I'm usually thinking about where the body is and where the space is and where the audience is, but that I have these really clear moments of my attention being totally invested in what his mouth is doing is interesting for me as a performer. Hopefully it's interesting for you guys to watch as well too, but.
Well, and it's such an interesting shift from, the nunchuck hair movement that we saw in the previous performance. It's a completely different environment. You're creating a completely different sort of mood. What I love about this work is how richly it kind of comes out of your lived experience and your history and these sort of brief sort of chance moments, like seeing someone in sort of fatigues and a ball cap and Manolo Blahniks, strutting down 125th Street, or happening to be at a club on a certain night, someone else is there, something is happening. These formative things that you're not necessarily out there looking for, but that are crossing your path, and then you're digesting them, and they're kind of coming out through this work, years and decades later. And there's also, you talk really clearly about the borrowing or the informing by strategies and practices that you're intimate with through working with artists like Ralph Lemon, Bebe Miller, Ishmael Houston Jones. I think you called them once like the black postmoderns. Right. And so to just focus on maybe those three. Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Bebe Miller, Ishmael Houston Jones, or Ralph Lemon, but what have you brought into your own practice through working from them?
There's something that came up to me actually when we were having a conversation. I had said something about, I feel like I'm carrying on some of the traditions. I was like, carry on. Carry on. Carrying on is an energy that I had located, again, sort of in this black gay aesthetic. But I also think it's part of an Africanist aesthetic of the story must go on. And part of, I feel like, the work I've done with Bebe and Ralph and Ishmael, they have encouraged me and the people that they work with as the people that they work with to carry it on. So it's not about sort of, for me, I don't feel like it's about ingenuity. I'm doing something new. I've created something new. I've broken with, maybe sometimes what we think about in modern and postmodern traditions, I've broken from the thing that's before me to create my new thing. I feel like I'm investigating something, but I feel like the tactics and tools and the energies that they were so deeply invested in, I'm trying to carry on. And I'm hoping that I am doing service to my young collaborators and hoping that they carry on their traditions as well.
Great. So there's one final bit of dance that we want to show. It's the spiral hoo-ha, is what you called it. And from that section, we're going to kind of let this event, break and dissolve and go into conversation with all of you to the extent that you're interested in hanging out, remaining in the space, coming up to any of these lovely artists, DJ Justin, myself, and talking with us more one-on-one about what we're doing here and what this work is all about. So with that, I'll invite us to start this spiral hoo-ha section, and we'll go from there. And thanks again, all of you, for being here.
Watch out, the floor. Testing. Feel free to pump the space.
Let it all out. Bitch, let it all out.